And today we're gonna get our green on with the Romulan fleet. This is pretty much all of them, and these are Eaglemoss, the things. There aren't that many Romulan vessels, which is surprising considering they were in Star Trek before the Klingons. But let's go chronologically. Beginning, we have the bird of prey from Enterprise. This is very, very clearly an homage to the one we're going to look at in a minute from the original series. About 130 meters long, at least in canon, so not tiny, but not big. Plasma weapons, maybe. Disruptors, most likely. We really only saw this briefly, and that's about it. It had a cloak, which annoyed a lot of people. I can't say that I liked that choice. However, as I'll explain in a minute, this isn't kind of the first time they've used that. I think the model's neat, and since this, really was never made anywhere else, yeah, it's pretty interesting to me. I think it's a neat ship, and what can you do? You can't help that it looks more modern than the old one, but that's just, keep in mind we're dealing with fiction here. Really, the only other Romulan ship we saw in Enterprise is this one. They called it a Warbird. This is also the drone ship. To me, it looks and feels like a cicada shell. Growing up, we called them June bugs, and they would shuck their shells off and leave them on trees. It just has that thing. This was actually much smaller, even though they call it a Warbird, than the bird of prey over there. Only about 35 meters. So this would be more of a scout ship. And even though this was a prototype remotely controllable drone, they made it clear that it was basically built on the chassis of a standard ship. I think the model's really well done. This was never done in a physical form before. It's got metal, it's got a lot of plastic because of the antennae and stuff, but yeah, these would be the two ships you'd see in the 22nd century from Romulus. Of course, we don't really know. But moving on, we have the original series ship, and this is one I was very happy that they were doing. Bird. This model is very nice. Of course, the original was very plain Jane. Most people know it from the episode Balance of Terror, which it was definitively in, but it was also in other episodes too, I believe, especially in the remastered. Sorry guys, getting these back on the stands when you can't see and trying to do it one-handed isn't the easiest. But pretty plain Jane, but a unique look. Essentially it's an Enterprise saucer with some things. Now, when they encountered this, they were shocked to find that it had a cloaking device. Now, the cloak in that episode was relatively primitive to what we would come to expect later, but it was something. Now, some BS that keeps getting tossed around is that these were only impulse capable. No way. It's just not a graph of how space travel. I mean, if you just had impulse, which is sublight, about half light speed, give or take, in the fictional universe, it would take ages just to go across one solar system, much less interstellar. Now, some make the excuse that these were dropped off by bigger ships. The thing is, these are warp engines. Very clearly, Bassard collectors. This was a warp ship. I mean, how could it otherwise even go from, outpost to outpost bombing them? I mean, you can't tell me the outposts are that close together that it could get there in less than a day from one to the other. It's just based on one throwaway line that Scotty said in the episode, that they only have simple impulse. Several explanations, most of it, hey, this is fiction. And you know what? There's lots of things in the original series, as much as I like it, that you pretty much just have to take at, face value. For example, they refer to the galaxy from time to time. Like they're traveling across the galaxy. Okie dokie. And moreover, the next ship is another good example of how the original series. Cloak was obviously integral to Romulans. And by Season 3, the very great episode, Enterprise Incident, they were showing them with Klingon ships. The story is well known as to why. Even in the remaster, they're still using them. Now, this is an Eaglemoss, but it's a Klingon. But hey, if it was good enough for production, it's good enough to have this stand in as my Romulan D7 for this video. The thing is, when they were doing that whole caper, it was to get a, quote, newly developed cloaking device from Romulans. They acted again like they'd never seen a cloak. Now, we can justify this by saying this was a generation above this one's cloak. Fine. In that case, it's okay for this one to have a cloak. This could be a Gen 1, Gen 2, and Gen 3. And that was really all we heard from the Romulans for quite some time. We didn't really hear from them except for a couple of cameos in the movies. But Next Generation, the last episode of Season 1, they are definitively back. They even say so. We're back. And that's where this famous ship comes from. The Romulan Warbird, the ginormous thing. This thing is over 1,300 meters long, so about a third of a Borg cube. Actually, even more than a third, close to half, really. The previous ships, like I said, were about 130 for the Warbird, or Birds of Prey, and the D7's about 288, 230, 228, something like that. So, significantly larger. And again, when they saw this, they were shocked that it had a cloak. And they were very much saying they had improved their cloak yet again. So, yeah, apparently that's just an ongoing thing. If we haven't seen the Romulans in a while, we're going to talk about cloaks. So, there it is. I like this model, even though I wasn't super excited about it, because this Warbird has been so many places for so long. It's still nice to have, and this one has a lot of metal in it. Good sculpting. And it's quite large. But moving on, this is honestly one I was more interested. Where are we at here? Here we go. I skipped over it. The Romulan Scout Syrup from Season 3, the Defector. Boop, boop. This is something pretty unique to Eaglemoss. I'm not going to say no one else has ever done this model, but it's not common. I know that Micro Machines had it. Still, this has a lot of metal. Good detail, and it's nice to see a smaller ship again for them. This is only about 90 meters. It can be operated by one, but I'm sure it's at least supposed to have a couple of folks on board. But we only saw it once, which is kind of odd. Well, sort of. We saw this ship. This is the Romulan science ship. One sec, folks. Let me just do a little reorganization here. Doot and doot. Da, 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 da. Science ship. It's basically, you can see just a redress of the Scout. They changed this, and they added this module in the back. And since we hadn't seen the Scout ship but once, I thought that was a good reuse. Keep in mind, when this was being aired, they were still relying on models, so models are very expensive. Normally, I wouldn't be that thrilled if a company reused something like this and so similar to the Scout, but since we have so few Romulan ships and so many Federation and others, I'll give them a pass. I still like the Scout a little better, but the science ship's kind of neat. Now moving on to the more or less most modern era, let's look at the shuttle. This is one that I originally wasn't terribly excited about, but when I got it, I really like it. I had no idea. I mean, it's typical. It's very, very Romulan. It's from DS9. I did like the episode it was in, and the pale moonlight. Seems like it's a pretty large shuttle, maybe more analogous to like a runabout It's about 25 meters, maybe 30, so it's very close to that Warbird way back over there. We saw the Senator using it. It obviously has cloak. It seems to have pretty good defenses. Also, it seems to be quite large and also capable of quite long-range travel, since I don't think Cardassian space is that close to Romulan. But it's a neat design and is an interesting side note. As most everyone knows, this was the last physical model really ever made in that series, so there's some neat points, not to, again, be from a really good episode. And of course, probably the most popular ship they've done, Romulan, is the Valdore type. That is, you should think of it as Valdore class. And this is a neat model, like the original from Star Trek Nemesis. Get on there. I don't know what I'm showing you. Let me get out of here. Okay. See that? It's very wide but thin. And they did an excellent job with this. It's very light. Not a lot of metal. Mostly plastic, which I normally prefer the more bulky metal ones. But this is such a cool design. And it was just great to see something besides the regular Warbird over here. This is smaller, but still a very big ship. It's about 600, a little over, meters, so about half the length, a little less than the big one. But it's supposedly better armed, probably also faster and more modern, and also cheaper to mass produce. I would imagine, since Romulans were in the Dominion War, this would be kind of built after lessons learned from their experiences. It seems like everyone went to smaller ships during or after that war, and the Romulans entered late, so it makes sense. These seem to have come into use around 2275 to 2278, and of course popular from Nemesis. Good times. And I'm really happy they did this model. And as far as we know, this is the most modern Romulan ship, strictly speaking, canon. I'm not really, for one thing, Eaglemoss doesn't have one yet of the scimitar, or as we used to jokingly call it, the scimitar. But that's technically a Riemann ship. Anyway, not to mention a goofy one. These are the Romulans, and I think they hold a nice lineage. I guess less is more sometimes. I did get a little tired of just the Warbird, over and over and over. Even, I figured for at least Deep Space Nine they should have maybe reused the shuttle there as a fighter, or maybe the scout ship or something. But anyway, it is what it is. And I really like the Romulans, and when I first got the Eaglemoss, these are the first ones I bought. Because aside from some Federation, I pretty much, when I started, said I was going to do Federation, Klingon, and Romulans. Yeah, that didn't work for long, but it was a good start. But I really like these. Anyway, if you have any questions or comments, or just want to chitty chat in the spot below, love to do it. If you liked the video, please like. And also, if you'd like to check out our main page, Mishaco, we've got all of our professional reviews over there. Well, this is Misha, and we will catch you next time.